Supreme Court has never told us.
I mean, this is why people hate lawyers, because you have this distinguishable fact, and this
Tiny little
very
difference.
specific circumstance has not been addressed.
We are the Armed Attorney State. We are talking about 16 radical anti-gun attorneys general suing a litany of people, including Texans and Texas gun rights. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button. And Richard, new suit just dropped.
Yeah, this is a wild one, and this is kind of the flavor of lawfare. We don't like that. We don't like Texans getting sued in other jurisdictions, especially jurisdictions where they don't have any contacts. Like that's the part that's blowing my mind. There's a little bit to this, but everybody all upset about the FRT settlement.
Yes, so this is a suit which includes the people who were parties to the FRT settlement. So that's why it's got all your rare breeds, right? All of your rare breed plaintiffs, that is. It's got all of it's got the DOJ, it's got National Association for Gun Rights, it's got Texas Gun Rights, which was also a party to that litigation. And essentially, we have all these states' AGs saying, hold up, the government, we don't really like that they settled that case, and so let's rope everybody back into court and let's challenge it dubiously.
Yeah, and so this is one of those things. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and we're going to go through the counts, what they're alleging, and ultimately, I mean, we're going to crystal ball a little bit and say, hey, where do we think this is going to go?
I got ideas.
But we're in Maryland.
Yes.
And we have all these other states' attorneys generals suing Department of Justice in Maryland. That's kind of our primary person. All these other parties, how are they getting dragged in?
I mean, they are getting dragged in because they are parties to the settlement. And really, the counts are against the government. There are 2 counts of action, which you have to read all the way to page 27 of the complaint to get past. I mean, the longer the string of just nonsense facts, the more.
The technical legal term is boo-hooing.
Yes, that's what I was telling Richard. I was like, God, they're boo-hooing so hard. There's 2 causes of action and they suck. But basically, and this is, I will say, I can appreciate good lawyer bullshit when I see it, even if I don't agree with it. And so one of the things they did here to get to this string of facts that are just, oh my God, everything's so tragic, is they're not really talking about FRTs. They have coined a new term, which they call machine gun conversion devices, MCDs.
That's a new one. Put that in the lexicon.
Yep, this is all about MCDs. Why, you may ask? Because people don't commit crimes with FRTs. They do commit crimes with Glock switches.
Yeah, that does happen.
So all of this is really about Glock switches, which is not what this settlement with the DOJ and the ATF was about at all.
And FRTs and Glock switches distinguishable from each other.
Yes.
Because, FRTs...
One's a machine gun.
One's a machine gun and one's not. FRTs, they speed up the function of the trigger such that, you can fire more rapidly. Glock switches, those are a singular part that, more than, one pull of the trigger, more than one round expelled. So, I mean, these aren't apples and apples.
No, although they do try. So that MCDs, I guess, respect to, again, the lawyer bullshit, because that's, it's good bullshit. But they do try to shoehorn FRT. Basically, they're like, well, if you pull the trigger back on an FRT, it's just going to keep firing. It's like, not really. The trigger is still resetting.
Yes.
It's part of the name. It still has to reset. So no, it's not the same thing, but they do try to really shoehorn it in there, to the greatest extent possible.
So let's get to the counts, because really ultimately what they're saying is, hey, federal government, we are mad that you are not enforcing 18 U.S.C. 922.0, and that's our general prohibition on machine guns.
Yes.
You know what's really bizarre about that? I mean, those are criminal. These are criminal penalties, or the criminal acts, and then the penalties are assigned later. But this is not a civil cause of action.
No, no. I mean,
Can you imagine if you could sue the government every time a law wasn't enforced?
yeah. Like, do you know how many, like, ooh, all the like breakups? Because we hear about a lot of stuff. We hear about a lot of stuff. Like all like the breakups we hear about where they're like, police wouldn't take charges for blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, because this is messy and you guys should just stop talking to each other. But
Yeah,
like,
because you both are a little bit punchy.
yes. Or a little bit harassy. That's
Sure.
normally the ones I hear where it's like, just just leave each other alone.
Yep.
Just stop. Stop. That's why they won't take charges. But can you imagine if you could file a lawsuit against the government every time the government chose not to prosecute something? So, and this is, I guess, a step further because they're saying, well, it's so convoluted. So they're saying that this settlement goes way too far because not only does it agree to return the FRTs to the named parties of the previous lawsuit, but the ATF has agreed that everyone can have their FRTs back. And that's the government engaging in the unlawful distribution of machine guns in violation of 18 U.S.C. 922.0. And it's like, what?
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, think about it applied to any other right. First Amendment. It's like, hey, government, you're not going out and stopping all these people from engaging in, let's say, something that's not protected. Just for an example, fighting words. Hey, government, you should engage in prior restraint, or, who's ever going to make this judgment call? It on its face doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. But that is actually, I will say that is the lesser of the two counts. The next one has better legal footing.
Yeah, and it's something you like to talk about.
Oh my gosh. All right. This is the part where I take over this video. The Administrative Procedures Act. I love the Administrative Procedures Act. I don't know why. I think it's because the regulatory state was a mandatory 1L class at my law school.
Did you do well in that class?
No, actually, I got a B minus, and I went to talk to the professor about it because that's the kind of law school kid I was. And basically, like, I was like, I don't understand why I didn't do well. And she was like, this just isn't for everybody, kid. Move on with your life, which was annoying at the time. But I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't do well in the class. Is that why I like
didn't
it
do
now?
well in criminal law.
Sure enough, I did really well in criminal law. Okay, so we have the Administrative Procedures Act, which establishes an arbitrary and capricious review for agency actions. However, is an agency non-action reviewable under the same standard? We actually have case law that says, no. We have Supreme Court case law.
Yeah.
That says no.
It's almost like an omission
Yes.
standard.
Right. So if an agency chooses not to take an action, the Supreme Court, in the case of Heckler v. Chaney, said, look, that's not something that we're able to review, right? You can't say, much like challenging the government for not enforcing laws, right? You can't say, you should have regulated and you didn't, right? Which I don't know what kind of like ridiculous Nelson makes that kind of challenge, but you're out there. So anyway, what we have though is an open question the Supreme Court has never taken up, which is it reviewable if the non-action comes through settlement? Basically, is an agency settlement closer to a rule, or is it closer to...
Or to them taking some action.
Right, taking some action, or is it closer to non-action? Supreme Court has never told us.
I mean, this is why people hate lawyers. Because you have this distinguishable fact, and this
Tiny
very
little difference.
specific circumstance has not been addressed. And I imagine, honest to God, I don't know what direction it's going to go. We're going to crystal ball in just a second on that specific issue. But going back to, all right, Texans getting dragged into a federal district court in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
The jurisdiction on this stuff is all sideways, so don't care for that in the outset. But I will say, I mean, the primary defendant really is the Department of Justice. I mean, this is all about, hey, what did the DOJ do? But all these other folks, I mean, they need to be put on notice. Obviously, their interests are implicated. If this agreement goes up in smoke, then, well, guess what? They're back to square one on all this. So obviously, they got to be named. They get to brief on all this. But, getting getting served. I mean, that's just a nightmare.
Yes.
Resident of one state getting served in another state. It's not a good time. I mean, a little funny tidbit on that in a little bit, but not ideal.
No, that is not ideal. And you know what's really annoying to me actually, and I don't know why this rubs me the wrong way, but the DC is one of the parties bringing this suit. Guess who the only circuit in the whole country is who has in fact ruled that you cannot sue under the APA for a settlement?
Ooh, it might be binding on them.
The DC circuit. So it's like, you know, it just when you are the attorney general, that's the kind of thing you should look at and say, the DC circuit's actually made a decision on this, and so maybe let's like faithfully enforce the law by not bringing a bullshit claim in another state.
Well, obviously this statute doesn't line up perfectly, but this does have an air about a slap lawsuit, a strategic lawsuit against public participation. And a lot of states and the federal government have laws against basically suing people for exercising their First Amendment right. Well, guess what? Suing for redress your government, definitely covered by the First Amendment. Now, I know this doesn't line up perfectly because we're talking about inaction by the Department of Justice, but the same core principle seems to apply in my gut, and that kind of drives me bananas.
Yeah, and they're getting sued because they are affected by the settlement, so they are included in the suit. There are lots of things. There are lots of ticky-tacky civil procedure issues here, but it just is, I mean, regardless, as Texas gun rights, you still have to hire an attorney and respond to this in a federal court in Maryland. I mean, I will say, I guess we normally plug GOA because GOA is kind of like our thing, but like plug for NAGR and Texas gun rights because like this is why they need our money. This is why we donate to the causes we like, because look, they did a good thing. They did a good thing for all of us. And here they are having to hire more lawyers and go back into court for the great sin of doing a good thing and having the courts rule in your favor. So,
and we reached out to Texas Gun Rights Director Chris McNutt this morning. I don't think they've been. He learned that he was being sued on social media, so I don't think they've been served yet. But as far as crystal balling, where do you see this thing going?
Okay, so there is a very hopeful part of me that wants to see it go all the way to the Supreme Court for an opinion about whether or not a settlement agreement is reviewable under the APA as being arbitrary and capricious. But I think that's unlikely. I do think the Supreme Court turns it down.
I think they get poured out on standing. That's my.
Well,
I don't think they address any issues.
Maybe.
This is my prediction.
No, you're allowed. I'm just thinking through your prediction, man. Come on. I see. Maybe.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I don't think they want to mess with this.
I don't think that anyone wants to mess with this, but you know, I don't know. District courts in Maryland, who the hell knows? Who the hell knows?
But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And as always, please question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.